Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue my segments on analysing the Chaos Space Marine Codex. Today I am going to focus on Huron Blackheart. Really cool character, a bit different from the other ones because, you know, compared to other ones, a lot of them began sort of during the Heresy time. Huron did not, and he's not sort of, you know, god sort of orientated in things, and more sort of the sort of starter for the sort of, you know, sort of renegade idea in a way, if that makes sense. So how this works is I usually talk a wee bit about the lore of the character and its special characters, get a wee bit of lore talk. I'm by no means a specialist when it comes to lore, so I do quite a wee bit of research, checking up all the stuff, and then I'll let you guys know. But obviously if you think there's more cooler stories or things that need to be corrected, let me know in the comments, and obviously you'll make sure I'm right and other viewers can see it as well. But I do a lot of research, so I'm fairly okay. Then I have a look at the stats of the units being analysed, look at their equipment, special rules, and then also give sort of an analysis on their sort of legion traits that they've got, warlord traits if they are usable, psychic abilities, stratagem recommendations, and a wee bit of a conclusion on the unit itself. So with that, let's have a look at sort of Huron's lore. So Huron Blackheart, the Tyrant of Badab, if I'm pronouncing that right, was once known as Lufgde Huron. I'm not going to try and pronounce that first name because he got rid of it, thank goodness. Lufgde Huron was once the chapter master of the Astral Claws, and sort of an alright guy. Sort of he, compared to other special characters in this segment that either have a long history of starting in the Heresy or too mysterious to work out where they began, Huron has not been around that long in comparison. However, what sets Huron up differently from others as well is that he's not aligned with any of the Chaos Gods in particular, but more of a raider and pillager in the 40k universe. He represents the might of a fallen Astaris who does not need to be fallen to chaos as such, but as a renegade who would see the Imperium fall for their folly. Huron has an interesting ride to power, yep, I said ride instead of rise, to say the least. He had a history of proving himself a capable warrior, a great strategist, and even a bit of a good leader and all. This made him a pretty invaluable warrior for the Imperium. The only problem is that he had a little bit too much of, well, he was a little bit too power hungry and inspired a little bit too much devotion to himself rather than the Imperial ways. Eventually the Astral Claws were based in the Maelstrom Zone in order to better protect the Imperium for the horrors and pains that hide there. During this time, the current chapter master of the Astral Claws was brought down, and so stepped in Huron. He reorganised the chapter to make them arguably much more efficient, however a lot more brutal. Eventually there was a civil war in the High Road of Badab Primaris, in which the Astral Claws stepped in to brutally put an end to the insurrection. However, in a slight grab for power, Huron made himself planetary ruler, and so began his title of Tyrant of Badab. He began reorganising planetary resources and pushing people into power to better serve himself. And while this made him more efficient at his job, this gave him a fair bit of power which others were not happy about. With all his success, Huron requested further aid from the Imperium in dealing with Maelstrom in order to further the success so far. You know, seems reasonable. However, his request was denied. Whether this was actually to benefit the Imperium or to further his power grab is speculation, but to have more resources at hand would have certainly seen his power grow. After his slight from the Imperium, Huron became a little bit reckless with the rules, eventually avoiding his responsibilities to the Imperium and more concentrating on his own power, eventually leading to Huron being declared renegade, as his lust for power had become all too evident, and he had stopped giving resources as much, and this led to the Badab War. This was a bitter war, seeing many Space Marine chapters come to put an end to the Tyrants, and eventually he was struck down by a melter blast which saw an end to the war as Huron was fatally wounded. Several of Huron's loyal Marines carried him and eventually escaped the sector. Though Huron are on the verge of death, but some will, chaotic or not, Huron eventually recovered to a degree from his injuries suffered, though apparently suffering extremely from them. Indeed, much of his body had to be reconstructed, but recover he did. During the years after the Dab War, Huron has been raiding and pillaging, gaining new supporters and slaves to further terrorise the galaxy, and this resulted in the renaming of the Astral Claws to the Red Corsairs and redecorating of their armour to the red you see today. Huron has collected a number of interesting stuff over the years. The Tyrants Claw, a great weapon used by Huron to burn and rend his opponents apart. His strange Hamato, which is said to bestow psychic abilities to Huron, and the capture of the strike cruiser Wolf of Fenris, which would not sit well with Space Wolf fans out there. Yeah, having a space cruiser that does have the sort of homeworld in the title and then get stolen, not good. Huron has proved himself a powerful opponent, a great strategist and a terrifying leader. All these qualities make him a foe to be feared and show that not all traitor Saris need to be fallen to the Chaos Gods to prove they are an exceptional foe to the Imperium. What damage Huron has planned for the universe and ways to further his own gains, we will have to see as Huron continues to wreak absolute havoc. So that's a wee bit of lore on Huron. I hope it was accurate. Again, if you think there's any cool stories that you'd like to add, please put them in the comments below. I think there was a cool one with Death Guard where he ended up fighting Typhus, and I can't remember who won. It was in the Death Guard book, but I think Typhus ended up plaguing a bunch of stuff and it was a bit of stalemate. It's hard to check, but there's some cool stories with Huron, you know, fighting a bunch of people as this sort of lore goes. So let's have a look at him on the tabletop. So what I do is I basically have a look at the stats, the weapons and equipment he's got, and also the special rules. So Huron has movement 6, weapon skill 2, bliss skill 2, so pretty good, kind of what you expect from Chaos Lords. Strength and toughness 4, again average. Some of the special characters have a bit better, but Huron is keeping to more the sort of Chaos Lord side. Wounds 5, fine, you know, a lot of on-foot characters like that do have 5 wounds. 5 attacks, really handy because he is a combat orientated character. Leadership 9, again not bad. I believe most Chaos Lords and things have that. Again, not going to affect morale, but more for spells and stratagems that might affect you. And a 3+ save because he's not in Terminator armour or anything like that. It's kind of standard for Chaos Lord. I will quickly touch on the Hamato, because it's sort of a separate unit that he does have with him. Keep in mind that if you do ride him in a transport, kind of important is that you do need a slot for him and the Hamadra, so don't put him like with a 9-man unit of Possessed or something, and then, because you can't, because it's got to be an 8-man unit squad and Huron and his Hamadra. I made that mistake before. The Hamadra's got movement 6, weapon skill 6+, so it's not hitting anything. It does not have a ballistic skill, because no. Strength 2, well, if he's not hitting, he's not wounding either. Toughness 4, 1 wound, 1 attack, leadership 9, and a 3+ save, which I was a bit surprised by. But yeah, solid sort of save. What's probably handy with the Hamadra more than anything is that it does offer that psychic ability I'll get into later on, but also if Huron happens to be hit by like a high damage weapon, you can actually remove the Hamadra first, I'm 90% sure. So a last cannon targets Huron, haha, Hamadran's gone. I'm 90% sure you can do that, so yeah, kind of like a handy way to, you know, take away a wound if a high power weapon goes from. So in his equipment, he has Tyrants Claw, Power Axe, Frag Grenades, Crack Grenades. Obviously very handy. So let's talk about those weapons themselves. The Tyrants Claw, we'll talk about his ranged weapons first, which is basically the Tyrants Claw and Frag and Crack Grenades, and then look at the Power Axe and Tyrants Claw in combat. So Tyrants Claw and shooting is range 6, it's assault d6, strength 5, minus 1 AP and 1 damage. This weapon automatically hits its target. It's kind of the stat profile of, I think, a heavy flamer, except it's got, I think, a better range by 1 inch, or either the same range, and it's assault, which is really, really handy. Good ranged weapon considering you want to get Huron close to opponents, so really, really nice to have. Frag and crack grenades I won't go into, otherwise I'll be doing them in nearly every single video, but simply, if I was to be brutally honest, why are you using grenades instead of the Tyrant's Claw? It hits automatically and it's stronger. Maybe you could use a crack grenade if you want to go against a vehicle, but I really like the Tyrant's Claw. So in combat he's got 2 options, the Power Axe, which is melee, plus 1 strength, making him strength 5, minus 2 AP and 1 damage. Not bad but not great, it's a Power Axe. Then he's also got the Tyrant's Claw. So it is his melee variant on this, is a melee weapon, times 2 strength, making him strength 8, minus 3 AP and D3 damage. When attacking with this weapon you must subtract 1 from the hit roll. Essentially a Power Fist all but in name. I'm 90% sure that's all the same stats as a Power Fist. So yeah, there's times and situations where you need to decide between the two. There is ways to mitigate that minus 1 to hit. So it's, you know, some situations going to be better to use one or the other. I really like the Tyrant's Claw. I'll explain there's some ways to get the most out of it, but it's a really, really handy one. It does, you know, more strength, more AP, more potential damage. So it's kind of a good weapon. You might go for the Power Axe at our stage. The only advantage is you don't get the minus 1 to hit. So in terms of abilities that Huron does have, Death to the False Emperor, pretty standard. Not going to go into it. If you play Chaos, you're going to know Death to the False Emperor. I'm going to speak about it later on, but you know, it's a good ability. The Tyrant of Badab. If your army is battle forged and Huron Blackheart is your warlord, you receive 1 additional command point. Command points are good. They're really handy to have. So this gives you a bit of incentive to actually use Huron as your warlord. Now there is one disadvantage to that, I'll go into that later on when discussing his warlord trait, but there is another advantage then. If he is a warlord you get an extra command point. Sigil of Corruption, Huron has a 4+ invul save. I believe all Chaos Lords actually have Sigil of Corruption. Yeah, so it's pretty standard for Chaos Lord, 4+ invul save, really handy. 4+ invul saves are really good. Having less than that is not ideal, so really good to have that survivability. The Hamato, after Huron Blackheart has manifested psychic ability, I'll go into psychic abilities in a minute, his Hamato can lend him additional power if it is still alive. When it does so, Huron Blackheart can immediately attempt to manifest an additional psychic power. So yeah, that's handy to be able to. He's only, I think, you know, manifest 1 psychic ability in each friendly psychic phase and attempt to deny 1 psychic power in each enemy psychic phase. He knows Smite psychic power and 1 psychic power from the Dark Hereticus discipline. So what this rule with the Hamato basically means is that whatever ability you choose with Huron, if you are going to use it, then cool, you can. And you know, if you're successful with it, then you can go, well cool, I'll chuck in Smite as well, or vice versa. So the disadvantage to that though is that you can only know 1 spell from the Dark Hereticus one, so it's going to be Smite or that other spell you chose, but it just essentially all but name, gives them the ability to cast twice. Kind of handy, but I actually like it because it mitigates that wound if needed, so the Hamato is good for that reason as well. Lord of the Red Corsairs. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for friendly Red Corsair units within 6 inches of Huron Blackheart. So essentially that is Lord of Chaos rule, where usually that would be Legion only. His is for Red Corsairs. They get the buff from it, essentially. So yeah, that is his stats and equipment. Kinda good, really happy with them. Next we're going to go with the Legion traits of Huron. Now he only has 1 to choose from. It's a bit messy on how it's worded though. So the rules state that when it comes to Legion traits, if your Chaos Space Marines are Renegade chapter, or if they do not otherwise have an associated trait, use the Renegade chapter trait. Use the Renegade chapter trait sort of. So if you don't have a pre-assigned one, you're not actually assigned it yourself, you know, you've decided I'm not going to be Night Lords, then Renegade is sort of your go-to one. For example, all of the units described, and I think that's me quoting here, for example, all of the units described above, yeah, I'm quoting, that are in Red Corsair detachment would have the Dark Raiders trait. So yeah, that's a quote actually. As Huron is a Red Corsair, he is using this Legion trait, so that means it's going to be Renegade Chapter's Dark Raiders. Units from this trait can advance and charge in the same turn. Very simple Legion trait and a good one for assault armies. With Huron, this is pretty good as he's predominantly a character you want to get in combat. So having advance and charge is really good. It has some advantages if used with warp time. We'll see Huron possibly march up the field very quickly. There's a bit of a disadvantage to this Legion trait, which I'll go into later. I think it's in the stratagems I'll talk about it. But if you're playing an assault heavy army, this Legion trait works pretty darn well. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. You know, Renegade Chapter's Dark Raiders is a great Legion trait. It has one disadvantage, I'll go into it later, and it's a very, very specific one. But generally, if you are playing assault heavy armies, having Huron leading possessed, going to be great because you're just going to be moving a lot quicker. Huron's Warlord trait is pre-assigned like all special characters so far with codexes. There may be one or two I don't know about that don't have pre-assigned special, you know, they don't have pre-assigned Warlord traits, but generally special characters do, and Huron is no exception. His is Eternal Vendetta. You can reroll wound rolls for attacks made by a Warlord in the fight phase against targets with the Adeptus status keyword. So against Loyalist Marines, this is a great Warlord trait. Huron can do a fair bit of damage in combat, so ensuring he does as much as possible. However, against anything other than Loyalist Marines, and keep in mind Loyalist Marines, not, you know, Guard or anything, it is useless, and you just got to put it out of mind, you know, and that includes Xenos as well. You know, don't, if you can't get it, then it's not going to happen. Shame really as Hatred Incarnate, I think would be a better choice, generally for general use, but because it's very specific to it does not seem that good, because obviously if you went for a Warlord trait that does affect in every game, this one's very good, but it's only against depending what your opponent is playing. Sure, if you play a lot of Loyalist Marines, you'll get some use out of it, but Xenos races are not going to be worried. When I play Huron, I tend to match him up with the Demon Prince to give me a bit of options. He does benefit from the Legion trait too, and generally have the Demon Prince as the Warlord, and try and give him a better one than Hurons. However, if you're playing against the Loyalist Marine, then Huron can work out, but generally I would have someone else as the Warlord. If you're against Marines though, then yeah, maybe consider his because you get an extra command point for it. But against other guys, I'd probably go with the Demon Prince with, I'll reveal that I'm a Demon Prince one, of better loadout of Warlord traits. I do have a preferred one with Demon Princes. So if you're playing Xenos or Guard or Admech, then yeah, maybe Huron is not the best to go with your Warlord, because all you're going to get really is a command point. Psychic abilities. Thankfully, Huron, like many combat characters in the Codex, can benefit fairly well from the Psychic phase. If you've watched this segment before with other characters, then you're going to know that most of the spells I talk about, or if you play Chaos in general, which I imagine you probably do, but hey, I gotta talk about them. So, Prescience, Warp Charge 7, select a Heretic status unit within 18 inches and add 1 to hit rolls. Made for this unit until the start of the next Psychic phase. So Huron benefits from this probably more than most special characters I've talked about so far. Sure, he hits a 2+ already, so this only really benefits his Death of the False Emperor, meaning that it activates on a 5+, which is nice, and we all know that, you know, if you're against Loyalist Marines as well, you're going to be, you know, rerolling wounds as well, which is handy. However, it does benefit him far more for his strongest attacks from the Tyrants Claw in combat. Usually this is -1 to hit. This sort of mitigates that, meaning you just miss on ones, which he can reroll already, which is nice. His ranged weapons hit automatically, which means, well, his Tyrants Claw hits automatically, which means there will be no benefit on it, or if you use grenades, then why? Then it is still not really so much of a benefit because he hits on 2s with the Bliss skill anyway. Is Huron the best choice for this awesome ability? Not too much, seeing as the main benefit is the Tyrant's Claw just not missing on 2+. Big units of Berserkers, Possessed, and generally heavy hitters with a lot of attacks that usually hit on 3s, becoming 2s, will see a bigger benefit, I feel. However, if Huron is against an Imperial character, then I would consider it. You know, you want to make sure those hits get through more reliably. If you've got things that are, he's against like a multi-wound thing and you want to use the Tyrant's Claw, then yeah, making sure those attacks get through is pretty important. Diabolic Strength, Warp Charge 6, select a Heretic Status model within 12 inches of the Psyker. Until the next Psychic phase, add 2 to the model's strength and 1 to the model's attack characteristic. So this again is helpful to Huron, but overall not the most helpful I would like it to be. I have described in other situations where it's incredibly helpful. For Huron it's a bit of a debate. Let's say we use Huron's Parax. This will make him strength 7, which is great against toughness 4. It does not help, which is great against, I think more against sort of, yeah, it's only against sort of toughness 5 because he's already sort of toughness 4, so it's kind of wasted if it's actually toughness 4 because he's already wounded on 3s, so it's not going to be any help there. I wrote that down. So maybe but it does mean that he will get from strength 5 from the axe to strength 7, meaning against guard, Tau, etc. he's wounding on 2s, which is kind of handy. However, against toughness 4, you're going to probably choose the Claw, especially if you're striking toughness 4 or more. It means you're wounding on a 2+, which essentially, as this is his base profile with multiplications, add on Diabolic Strength makes him strength 12, I believe. We had a debate on what goes first as multiplications or modifiers. I believe you add the modifier to his base profile and then you do the multiplication from the weapon. So this would make him strength 12, which is handy for wounding things that are toughness 5 or 6, or things that are like even toughness 8. It just moves him up a lot stronger. Generally other characters really want to get to that strength 8 factor. However, as Huron can already do that with the Claw, it's trying to see what his targets are and best to use it. Honestly, still great. You get an extra attack and all, and will usually prove useful against heavier foes, but against infantry the Tyrant's Claw sort of has it covered. What I'm saying is that it's not essential as others, but by no means not useful. Warp Time, Warp Charge 6, pick a Heretic or Status unit within 3 inches of Psyker. This unit can immediately move as if it was the movement phase. A unit can only benefit from this once per Psychic phase. So yeah, we all love Warp Time, it's super good. Why does it help Huron especially? Because you can move, advance and still charge. So essentially you're getting 2 lots of movements and advances, which is really good. There may be better targets than Huron, as he isn't quite as dangerous as Abdon or Karn at a sudden shock attack of loads of attacks, but it may guarantee to get him where he needs to be. It is a staple in any Chaos force, so what can you say? If he looks like the best target, cool. If you really want to push up a Possessed or Corn Berserker unit, by all means Warp Time may be a better choice there. It's an awesome ability. Huron gets advantages from it, but so does a lot of assault armies. As Huron is a Psyker himself, being able to know one ability, I would usually go with Warp Time as it gets him into position, or possibly Death Hex, which would be make him good at removing those invul saves. I hate Storm Shields, I hate them so much. So Huron hits pretty hard if you're coming against Thunderhammer Storm Shields. Yeah, Death Hex is essential. As he's looking to probably buff himself, I see these two as the most useful for him. Disagree, let me know. There's a lot of debate whether what one would be best for him. Warp Time or Death X is probably the way I would go. Though Prescience is pretty good, but it's only really for one thing. As I said, I usually team them up with the Demon Prince, so have it all if you want. Stratagems. Stratagems are an interesting one for Huron. Why? Because as he is a renegade, he will not be able to use Veterans of the Long War, which is arguably one of the best stratagems in the Chaos Codex. Very versatile and helps almost any force, and it is a great shame that renegades cannot benefit from this. But such is life. I'd always say that Veterans of the Long War is one of the most staple of stratagems for Chaos Space Marines. But if you take Red Corsairs, it's not happening today. With that, he is not mark aligned, and there is no renegade specific stratagem. I'm struggling to see how Huron would benefit from a lot of the stratagems. I thought you could use Beseech the Chaos Gods, make a Mark of Khorne, and then use Fury of Khorne to attack twice. However, as he does not have the Mark of Chaos keywords at all, then he cannot switch out keywords. The stratagem says you must have that keyword and I think be unaligned to then get the Mark of Khorne and start using them stratagems. But you can. It's not going to happen, so you don't get that option. So I've had to go de facto Chaos Boon. So for one command point you can roll on the infamous Chaos Boon table. I have said this before, I am not a fan of the Chaos Boon table as it's too random, but there's some really good options there that will help Huron out a wee bit, except for Spondum. So no one wants really that one. Just make sure you've saved a command point in the fight phase for the result. Don't roll a 2. Anything but 2s is probably essential for that one. So yeah, when it comes to stratagems with himself, I'm struggling to actually bring any advice there. Gonna ask you guys to possibly maybe put a comment or two, let other viewers and myself what stratagems might work with Huron, but not having access to Veterans of the Long War is quite a hit. So yeah, that is sort of my segments on Huron Blackheart. I actually think he's a great character. I really enjoyed using him in previous battle reports. Renegades is a great Legion trait, and he does march up well quite with assault heavy units to add extra damage. Good melee potential, got a bit of psychic ability as well. Generally, great character I actually enjoy fielding quite often. So thanks again for watching. Please comment, share, like and subscribe. Check us out on social media and our Patreon page where we've got some extra stuff going up on there as well. So thanks again, and we'll see you on another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.